I'll just give you a few seconds to please take your seats. It's very good to see you all. So, we are so privileged to have joining us today Ambassador Oksana Markarova. Ambassador Markarova is a former Minister of Finance that has served as Ambassador of Ukraine to the United States since her appointment in February 2021. We all know what's going on in the world. We're talking about it constantly in the course of this meeting. Ambassador, we're so privileged to have you here to address us, and I just want, without further delay, to welcome you to the podium to address us.
Thank you very much. It's an honor and pleasure to be in a room with this amount of legal talent. And this is what we need these days. Because Ukraine believes in international law. And I know it's a difficult thing to say right now when we face a brutal attack from the country that has no respect for international law. A country that has no respect for human rights, a country that has no respect for anything but force, Russian Federation. While Ukraine believes in international law, the international law today must rise to the occasion. Russia repeatedly violates and disrespects the international law. We see it clearly now in this war against Ukraine. Of course, we are suffering in this aggression. We are suffering war crimes. We are suffering crimes against humanity. It's difficult to find a war crime or violation Russia did not commit yet in Ukraine. We are also seeing, and we have to be very vocal about it, the weaknesses of international institutions. Where is UN Security Council? Where is UN in general? It's supposed to guarantee peace and security. Instead, it is disabled by a permanent member abusing its veto, a permanent member who is an abuser today. The world is not doing enough, but it doesn't mean we have to give up. Against all of this, while we face many challenges, we still put our faith in international law and in international institutions. And we put our faith in you, all the people who are in this room today, leaders in international law, lawyers who not only believe in skills and professionalism, but believe in justice, something that each of you thought about and respected when you have selected this profession. Like now in Ukraine, when people who are fighting, and Ukrainians all are soldiers today, regardless of who we are, diplomats, bread growers, armed forces, police, rescuers, we all are fighting for our country, and we all understand now this renewed notion of service. What is it that you do when you defend your home? But I think it's applicable to everyone. So everyone who's an officer of justice today also has this responsibility to do everything possible to help to restore justice. Part of that way to work and restore justice is the belief in the democratic values and believe in the rule of law. And this is what we are fighting in Ukraine for. It's not just to protect our homes. It's not just to protect our people and our territory from the brutal invasion. Russia attacked us because we made a civilizational choice to be democratic. We've made the choice repeatedly. We've made the choice during the previous 400 centuries. And the response to that choice was always an attack. And unfortunately, in 1918 and in all the previous centuries, we failed. We were occupied, and for years and sometimes centuries did not have our statehood. But in 1991, 98% of Ukrainians voted for independence, everywhere in Ukraine, including Crimea and Donetsk and Lugansk. In 2014, when we had our revolution of dignity, again, the majority of Ukrainians said no to the change to the, again, pro-Russian movement. And we started rebuilding our country, and we're on the firm path to become members of European Union, NATO, to become part of the family, transatlantic community. That's why Russia attacked again in 2014 first, and that's why we have this full-fledged war now. Russia's violations of international law is not only against Ukraine, even though, of course, you know, it's the war against Ukraine right now. But Russia is violating the most sacred international obligations that are owed to the whole world. When Russia does it, every country in the world has an obligation to respond. And it's not just a moral obligation. And you heard our president speak on so many occasions to a number of national parliaments, to the UN. But it's very important not only for Ukraine, but to each of these individual states, because they have a binding obligation under international law to take actions to end such an illegal situation. The unprecedented sanctions that we have seen from the US, and we are very grateful that US is leading this, but also from European community, is of course part of that response. But it's not enough. We need to take still more measures in order to stop this and in order to hold everyone accountable. So the international law is part of Ukraine's response to Russian aggression. And of course we are using the international law to defend our rights, but we are also using it to restore justice for everyone. So just 2 days after Russia's invasion began, Ukraine filed a case against Russia in the International Court of Justice. Here I'm talking about it again. The case was brought under the Genocide Convention, and for the last 8 years, Russia told lies about Ukraine committing genocide in eastern Ukraine and violated the Genocide Convention, actually. So Putin has said the objective of this war against Ukraine was to stop genocide, which is a brutal lie. His actions actually are leading to extermination of Ukrainians. We explained to the World Court that this was an offensive lie, and we now have a forum where we can present all of our evidences and positions. On March 16th, the court issued a historic provisional measures order. The court's order was clear and unequivocal. It said the Russian Federation shall immediately suspend any military operations that it commenced on February 24th in the territory of Ukraine. This was an important step in restoring international law. Now, of course, we all see that Russia didn't listen to it, and we see that even after that decision has been taken, the war only is increasing in Ukraine, and the atrocities that Russians are committing are unbelievable in the center of Europe in the 21st century. But every day it continues. After that decision, Russia commits new violation of international law. And it's very important for us. It's very important for us that it's not only something that we say, but something that all legal community knows and believes in. Ukraine has also turned to the European Court on Human Rights and received another important order of interim measures. On March 1st, the European Court of Human Rights ordered Russia to refrain from military attacks against civilians and civilian objects, including residential premises, emergency vehicles, and other specially protected civilian objects, such as schools, hospitals, and to ensure immediately the safety of the medical establishments, personnel, and emergency vehicles within the territory under attack or siege by Russian troops. Now, I don't have to remind you that after that decision was taken, we have seen a bombing of the birth center in Mariupol. We have seen a number of hospitals bombed and destroyed. We now have more than 40 universities completely gone from the face of the earth. Some of those universities were 200 years old, something that even Nazi Germany did not destroy during the World War II. And we've seen the atrocities against civilians in places like Bucha and Vorzel and Borodyanka, Irpin, those names that were unfamiliar, and I doubt you would ever hear about them, if not this horrendous scenes of hundreds, but we have to understand it's thousands, if not tens of thousands, civilians being tortured, raped, shot on the street, left to die on the streets, executed in the most brutal ways. So we also look at the range of criminal mechanisms to provide accountability for Russian Federation as a state, but individually for everyone who's responsible for this. We're documenting every crime that Russians are doing on our territory. Our intelligence obtained the files and exact lists of everyone, every detachment that is in Ukraine, from the commanders to the last soldier. And we're doing everything to investigate these events through the International Criminal Court, which, as you know, opened an investigation. But also, we're especially glad, and we encourage other countries to join, the 10 countries that launched their own investigations. I don't have to tell you, I'm not a lawyer, what are the shortcomings of the International Criminal Court, and that's why this individual investigations, including the investigation that our Prosecutor General has started, will actually fill those spots, and we will have everything covered. And I think the more countries can do it, and Ukraine is ready to cooperate, actually with all 10 countries that already opened them. Our General Prosecutor's team is cooperating fully. We're submitting the evidence, we're doing the joint teams, and we're ready to do it with many more countries. All of you are here, I believe, because you believe that international law matters. And my country also believes that it matters. We wish, of course, that the response is quicker, that it's more solid, that it's something that we can use and apply and actually make Russia stop. But regardless of how it is, we believe that it's important for all of us to try to ensure it. And if it's not enforceable, then we have to reform something. Then we have to come back and see what is it that we have to change together in order to restore the security. Because it's not about Ukraine only. And if you read Mr. Putin's articles last year, and if you read what he said publicly before he started this phase of the war on the February 24th, and if you read the absolutely despicable, article, which is not authored by him, but we know it's authored by Kremlin, 2 days ago, which essentially said, we made a mistake. It's not a couple of Nazis and pro-Western people in Ukraine led by President Zelensky, it's all of them. So essentially a declaration of we have to go and exterminate all Ukrainians because somehow Ukrainians being peaceful and democratic and European is a threat to Russia. Now, if Ukraine is a threat to Russia because we are peaceful, European and democratic, then all of us are a threat to Russia. And it will not stop in Ukraine. And I think it's our responsibility of everyone, but especially leaders in justice, responsibility to do everything possible in order to restore international law, in order to restore international rule of law, in order to show that regardless of your size, regardless of whether you have or you do not have nuclear weapons. And it's a very important point here as well, because Ukraine is the only country that voluntarily refused from the third largest nuclear arsenal in 1994 in exchange of what we thought were guarantees. Turned out it was assurances, and turned out assurances that did not work. But it's also a very important point, because for us to be safer after this, and I know for us Ukrainians it's difficult to think about it now. The goal for us Ukrainians now is to stop the war, stop the killing of our people, and return to normal life, if a normal life is possible, because we have to understand that this war affected not only those who already are killed, not only those who are tortured, not only 4 million that fled the country, primarily women and children, not only 10 million who are IDPs inside the country, but all of us, all generations of Ukrainians, all 40 million who experienced this war, brutal war, for the past 43 days. It will affect all of us, and not to mention the destroyed cities and the infrastructure and how we will get back to normal. But the goal now is to stop it, and we can think about that. But the goal for you as officers of justice is to think what do we have to do together to prevent this from happening, to change what didn't work before the war started, and now for the 43 days that didn't allow us to stop it right away. What do we have to change to prevent it? Because we have so many autocratic regimes, and unfortunately Russia is not going anywhere, even after we win this war, which I have no doubt that we will win this war. Because for 30 years, we have been independent. For 30 years, we lived in our own country. We had different opinions inside. We were criticizing each other. We made some mistakes, but those were our mistakes. But the most important thing, we have a generation of Ukrainians who never knew occupation. They've never lived in Soviet Union. They were never occupied, and they will never agree to be occupied again. And I'm sure some of those brilliant young Ukrainians are members of the many law firms that are present here today. And you know that they love freedom, and they're ready to fight for it, like all of us today. So with that, I would like to thank you. I would like to ask every one of you to help in any way possible, and you can do it. There is so much you can do to help it without even helping directly. Just be on the good side of it, on the light side of the light, and we together have to win it for the sake of our planet. Thank you very much. Героям слава!
Ambassador, thank you so much. As you can see, we're with you. You've been so generous with your time, given what I know is going on in your life. And in fact, I know that you have to get onto a Zoom with your president. So thank you for taking the time to come and be with us, because as you say, this is a society that's committed to justice. Now, you've spoken so eloquently about Ukraine's support for international law and international institutions, even as you point out where it has faltered and where it can be improved. And you've also spoken eloquently about lawyers and what lawyers can do. And I know that there are a lot of economic, political, diplomatic, and legal tools that are being employed right now. And I know there's a lot of frustration that more progress has not been made to actually stop the war. If you had to prioritize what an international community of lawyers devoted to supporting justice, as you say, and the rule of law, what they can do, what would you say?
Thank you. Well, first of all, let me tell you what are our priorities right now, because as Ukraine, we're working on several priorities, and I think in all of them, there is need for the legal talent, for sure. One very important one is weapons. We need all the tools, as Churchill said, in order to do the job. I think our brave armed forces already has shown that they're efficient and they can do the job, but we need the weapons. And by working with all of our friends and allies, with the US, but not only, there are a lot of legal issues there, and we could use some help. So whoever in the legal community knows and works with this very specific area of expertise, it would be much appreciated. The second part is sanctions. And this is, I think, where we can use all of the lawyers here, because, it's very important for us to increase the sanctions as much as possible, as a tool, to punish Russia for the actions, but also as the tool to stop Russia. Because we believe that all the sanctions, sectoral, financial, other sectors, they all decrease Russia's ability to finance this war. They all decrease Russia's ability to restock their military supplies. They all also change the calculus for Russia, because if the sanctions are strong enough and they see that they're turning into this financial, economic, international pariah, then that might be, a point to to stop it. So again, anyone who's very familiar and professional in this is the area where our governmental institutions and the embassy would be very happy to cooperate, and all the help is going to be needed there. Not to say that there is a lot of work in the corporate sector, because so many businesses have been destroyed in Ukraine. So many private businesses have been destroyed, international and Ukrainian. And it's something that Russia has to be held accountable for as well. And the third, of course, is a broader issue of taking or holding everyone accountable, from the criminal proceedings to the war crimes prosecution to broad but each individual issue as well. I think, it's just a huge work that is ahead of us, which of course will take a long time, but we have to start it now. As we discussed with some of you, from the collecting the evidence to thinking what we can do, what are the venues where we can bring it, to working with those 10 countries, but hopefully soon wider range of countries where we can present it. There are a number of specific issues. Like you probably heard that Russia took over 2 of the nuclear stations, nuclear plants. One of them they left already, the Chernobyl power plant, where they have been, I don't even know how to call it, stupid enough, I guess, to dig the trenches in the forest where it's prohibited even to walk. And Ukraine has done an amazing job after since 1991 to secure the premises together with international partners to create this confinement place so that we actually contain the source of radiation there and it doesn't go anywhere. Now, thanks to the Russian units that have been there placed and they were digging all of it, the radiation is much higher there. But also there are other damages, like the environmental damage is huge. There are other implications. All of that is a professional issue, but also a legal issue. So I think, there is a lot of work ahead for many teams of lawyers and legal professionals that will help Ukraine, but ultimately not only Ukraine, because we are at the beginning of forming so many new precedents. Unfortunately, something like this did not happen since World War II. And a lot of things we have to reconsider, and a lot of things we will have to amend, and a lot of new law will have to be written based on the lessons learned from this.
Thank you very much.
I wish you a great event. Thank you very much.